baby. Line them up.
What's up, CBR fam? In the bar, I see some people started early. We got Lupe. What's going on, Lupe? Kino gonna be here real shortly. CJ said free Kino, free Dimitri. Hey, Kino gonna be here. Dimitri been free. Dimitri gonna be free. Dimitri is certified CBR fan. What's up, DD? What's up, Dimitri? Art of the Chondros in the house. Who else we got? We got Chris from in the box. Hey, man, I got your banner up early, bro. Uh, who else we got? We got Tuck. Um, and who else? We got Woodstock. What's up, Travis Aquino? What's going on, Woodstock? Um, we waiting to see when Rich Culver shows up, y'all. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. Hold y'all. Hopefully he does show up. Like, if it doesn't happen, then you just get 2 hours, two unadulterated hours of me and Kino, which may or may not go extremely left. Who knows? You could get, 2 hours of something, useful. You could get an hour of just nonsense. We've been doing better, but it could happen. So we just waiting to see what happens. What's up, Mikey Martian? What's up, Ro? Hey, man. Shout out to everybody that went to Daytona, had a good time with each other. I like seeing people fellowship with, within the community, the Chondro community. Wonderful, wonderful thing. I heard some good stories. People got to meet each other. Also, man, when you're out here and you're out here going to these shows, man, you get a chance to build a relationship with somebody, and that may prove to be a wonderful, wonderful thing because sometimes, you don't necessarily know where somebody's coming from, and you have to see them in person to talk to them. And sometimes a lot of things get lost in translation in comment sections and text messages and DMs and shit. But having an actual conversation with somebody can go a long way. What did he say? Pimping and midgets for 2 solid hours. That might be what you get. I ain't gonna lie to you. It might be what you get, but you might learn something. It may be nefarious and not very useful to your day to day life or chondros at all. Period. But you may learn something that you really never needed to know, especially for somebody who likes to misuse the term blades. Um, we're gonna get to the MVF deep dive. This one is one of those things that is always concerning to me. I know it's concerning to other people. The topic is accurate thermometer, and it comes from Russ Dog 91. I can only imagine what year this guy was born in. So this is his post. Hi everyone. Any suggestions for an accurate thermometer that I can use as a standard to calibrate all my existing equipment that won't break the bank? I have some eggs coming and want to make sure I'm on point with my incubation temps. Thanks in advance for any suggestions. So people start giving him suggestions, right? Uh, One person suggested the Kessler 1096P laboratory grade thermometer. If you ever seen a Kessler thermometer, they're expensive. They're not cheap. Um, but they do their job well. Somebody else uh, commented that was an amazing one. You also had a comment from Dave D. Um, and Dave D. If I can get back to his thing where he posted. He uses a ACC 10023. It is too big to fit inside of an egg box, but it works for dialing in an incubator. Also, there were some other suggestions. People debating about Celsius versus Fahrenheit. However, you got to get it now. The thing about our thermometers, as far as our Govies and even our thermostats, they're not all exactly calibrated, right? Would it be nice if they were? Yeah, but they can be off. If you put two Govies side by side in the incubator, they may be off by like up to a degree. Now you can calibrate them. You can calibrate them yourself, but what is the standard for calibrating? That's why, it's useful to have something like this, something that I plan on investing in the future. Also, the Wi-Fi Govies, the little pucks, you got to calibrate those. You got to pick you got to pick whatever you're gonna put them on, because those things seem to be off when you put them next to each other, more so than the other ones. Uh, but that's pretty much it. I want to know how you guys look at thermostats and temp, how you guys are measuring it. Because temp guns don't necessarily tell you the truth either. Um, and I used to like to keep govies in my enclosures. I'm gonna tell y'all something, and some of y'all will be like, "Why stop?" So I used to keep govies in all my enclosures. I used to put them on the walls of the enclosures. At some point in time, once the batteries would go out, I would just stop putting them in. And I know that some people are super, concerned about what the temp is in various parts of the enclosure. I'm really not. I got a temp gun. I'll check it wherever it goes, but I'm not gonna sit there constantly watching the Govee. The only time I worry about Govies and temp is in my incubator. Um, I know that some people are gonna say, it would help to know what the temperature is like at the bottom of the enclosure. Trust me, it don't. It don't really matter. It don't really matter, in my honest opinion. But if you feel the need to do things like that, then do them. I know some people like using them for humidity, but you if you got them in an enclosure where you constantly spray them, you're gonna constantly go through gobies, especially in incubators. I don't know what's going on with me today. I ain't getting words right, but that's pretty much it, man. We're still hoping to get Rich Culver in soon. Kino is working on that. Beyond that, man, something that I always want to talk to you guys about is go back to Daytona for a little bit. Interpersonal relationships with each other, man. I know that like when you go back and look at the NVF, people used to work together a lot more than we work together now. Um, I think that we probably do more as looking at people's pictures and be like, wow, that's awesome. But back in the day, it seems like people used to have to work together a lot more. And for good reason, some of that stuff changed. You're not seeing as many breeder loans, which aided in the spread of Nido and whatever else. I know I missed a good time, Andy. Man, I wish I was there. But eventually, I get to see you, Obdal, and Tim. But talk to each other, man. If you see somebody in this chat and you never talk to them, I implore you to talk to them tomorrow, man. They might know something that you've been dying to know. Um, just try to build relationships with people. And that's not build relationships with somebody so you can get a cheaper free snake. It's just you do need people. You're not going to do this all on your own, man. Nobody does. Even the greatest of the greatest, they are not doing this on their own. So just learn to try to connect with people, even in the DMs, man. Not saying it should be going down in the DMs. It does. People try and do something strange with each other in the name of snakes. I know I've seen it, but try to gain a friend. Tuck, you've been my friend. I appreciate you very much. And just try to do your best as mentor, peer to peer mentoring, man. CJ does not have to go down in the DMs. You can listen. We've talked in the DMs, CJ, and it's never gone down. What's up, Javi? Um, we're still waiting. I'm kind of waffling here. I'm still waiting for Rich, man. I do have something that I do want to talk to you guys about. Where are y'all getting y'all rodents from? Um, have you guys noticed anything differently about your rodents that is not, the size of the rodents? Have you guys noticed an overall decline in quality? I had something happen with a rodent that I got yesterday. Um, it was already like leaking out of the stomach. I had to throw the whole thing away. Um, yeah, shout out to the people that are breeding their own rodents. Do you guys know where your big, like the big box companies like Lane Labs? you know, Rodent Pro, Big Cheese. You guys know where they're actually sourcing their rodents from because they may not actually be breeding their own rodents. That is something that me and several people have talked about. Um, and this is like not just in the chondro community and just the larger reptile community. Um, and have you noticed that your animals may not be doing well after receiving a certain type of rodent? I had a thing yesterday. No, 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 no. Yeah, yesterday. I had a snake take um a frozen thawed small rat. It's kind of crazy. This thing hasn't eaten a smoke has not eaten a frozen thawed anything since 2020, and that was sometime midsummer 2020. So in over 4 years, this thing has not eaten, a frozen thawed. And I don't know what changes in these animals sometimes, but I do think that there is a possibility animals can get sick and die because of bad rodents. So if you see something wrong with your rodents, if you think a rodent is stinky, if you think it's a little too brownish when it's supposed to be a white rodent, there's some fucking jokes that y'all can make. But we just talk about dirty rats. If you think, or if it's like got a yellow tinge on it from urine, and you just don't want to feed it, don't feed it. I encourage you guys to wash your rodents. I don't necessarily know how useful it is. I know it's useful with feeding pinkies and neos, but overall, just larger neos, I wash them off because I don't want to see that stank ass shit. Um, so that's just part of it. Checking out where your rodents come from, the quality of rodents. If you're getting local rodents or you're breeding your own, say that too. If you're getting them from a big box brand, and you have all the confidence in the world in them, or you don't think that they're doing well, you can say that too. I am going to show Chris from Innerbox's video. We're still waiting for a new video. Chris has got some new stuff, man. That's why I keep telling y'all to talk shit to him in the chat and tell him to get us a new video. That is our sponsor, Chris from Innerbox 3D. If you are looking to get some 3D printed reptile goods from this man, hit him up. I use his gear. I use the perch holders. I use the baby perches. I've used the probe holders. Everything from them has been good. So check it out. I like his color schemes. I don't think anybody else got color schemes like this man. He putting the flippity floppity paint on the 3D printed goods. So check him out. Also, man, he's a wonderful sponsor. He's been around with us from day one. And you know, we've done some unsavory things on this show, and he never said he's not gonna stop fucking with us. So we appreciate Chris, and we hope we keep Chris around forever. We got some things. We got CJ talks about Lane Labs. Lane Labs is by far the cleanest supplier I've used. Uh, and I'll say this, man. Lane Labs, they had a pretty good product, man. I've gotten things from Cold Blooded Cafe. It was pretty good. I got a small shipment from Big Cheese one time. Wasn't particularly thrilled about it. Um, got a small amount of rodents from Rodent Pro a long time ago. I would say this is like pre-pandemic. Um, they were good for the most part, but a couple of them, they didn't smell right when I thawed them. But it was a small order. This was back when I just had uh two chondros, so I didn't have big orders. I think I was spending more on shipping than the actual damn rodents. only because I didn't like the rodents that I was getting around here. Because for a while, my pet shop, they kind of went. Though this was actually post pandemic. The pet shop I used to go to, they closed in the summer of 2020, right? So I didn't really want to go to Petco or anybody else to get a big ass, shitty rodent in a bag. So um, I did have several small purchases of rodents till I got my fill, and I landed this at Cold Blooded Cafe. That's where I landed at. Mikey Mark says Lane has free shipping now, which has been nice. Shipping used to cost as much as rodents. Yeah, man, that's true. Shipping used to cost as much as the rodents. CJ, I picked up some from Cold Blooded and Tinley in March, and they were mix and match. He says they were garbage feeders. He says never again. Probably should have read that whole thing. CJ is very passionate about his feeders. If he doesn't like his feeders, he's gonna say something. But I've had good experiences with Cold Blooded Cafe. The only ones I haven't had good experience with is Big Cheese, Rodent Pro, and I used to get local from this one lady, but I don't know what she was doing, man. All these mice, they were just like wrecked with piss. Like they were so pissy that it was a pissy tinge on the plastic bag. They were just gross. So never again. But yeah, man, we're still waiting for Keno. Rich Culver is gonna show up whenever. I don't know what that means at this point in time. Javi says I get my ASFs from a friend and I produce them also with a different friend. That sounds kind of sketchy, bro. What you and your homeboy doing over there, Jaffe? I know you're a good dude. Woodstock says I lost several good snakes in the early '90s from bad rodents, Solomon Islands, tree boas, emeralds, etc., from gourmet rodent. Yes. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm not gonna say when this was, but I will say it wasn't that long ago. There was an issue in Canada, right, where somebody got a bad rodent, fed the bad rodent to the snake. The rodent had salmonella and possibly passed it back on to the keeper, and the keeper died. There was a time not too long ago where there was an explosion of salmonella cases. So you gotta be really concerned about where you get some of these rodents from. Yeah, he said Canada in my soldier voice. Uh, yeah, it did happen. It can happen anywhere, man. It has happened anywhere. So you got to be cognizant of these things. Also, man, if I don't know who else has seen this, but I've gotten a local rodent one time and it was frozen and there was a flea on it. There was a few fleas on it. It was a white rat and it was gross. I didn't. I threw that thing away. I thought it was foul. I thought that was real foul. If y'all ever had something like this happen to y'all, let me know. Uh, Mikey Marsh says he needs a local breeder. That can mean a lot of things. Let's hope he's talking about rats. Um, what we got here? We got we got him here, and it was gross. I didn't. I threw that thing away. I thought it was foul. I thought that was real
Mr.
foul.
Rich Culver, what's going on?
Hey,
Mikey
Hey,
Marsh
we getting
says he.
feedback.
That can mean a lot of things. Let's hope he's talking about rats.
We're getting feedback. I think you got the show playing. You got to cut the show off.
We got him here, and it was. I didn't. I threw that thing away. I thought it was foul. I thought that was real
Mr.
foul.
Rich Culver, what's going on?
is that better?
Mikey Marsh says he.
I think. Hold on. Is it stopping yet? We're getting feedback. I think you got the show playing. You got to hold on. Let me see if I got to exit out.
And it was. I didn't. I threw that thing away. I thought it was foul. I thought that was real
Mr. Culver, what's going on?
Is that better?
Mikey Marsh says he.
I think. Hold on. Is it stopping yet?
Feedback. I think you got the show playing. You got to
hold on. Let me see if I got to exit out.
I think it's still playing somewhere. I think you still got the show playing somewhere.
What's up, Keno?
What's going on?
You finally got here, man. With your stocking on your head, looking like Chicago Willie Beeman and shit. What's up? What's up, Keno Beeman?
There we go. I think we're in there now, huh?
I think we good now. What's going on, Mr. Rich Culver?
Hey, man, I'm totally sorry about that. None of you guys would believe it, but I work in IT, sort of. I can't get this shit together.
Hey, me too. And I break everything. I got a laptop that's sitting in front of me that I bought this thing in 2013 when I was deployed. Slow as shit. Don't feel like fixing it. Don't care.
Well, I hope we can have a good time tonight. We really appreciate you folks giving me the opportunity to join you. I watch your show. I have my own bar while I'm watching it, and it's always a good gig.
Well, we appreciate you for coming on. We appreciate seeing our legends show up because we're just kids, man. It's like little kids. We saw y'all balling at some point in time. I mean, we like seeing y'all. It's like seeing Alonzo Mourning walk around.
There you go.
Well, how you been, Rich? Now I can start my drinking.
I'm sort of isolated up here in Alaska. Not too many Chondro heads, just a couple guys. One of my good buddies, Chris Heim. Like to do a little swag brag from up there. There's not too many Chondro folks up here, so we're kind of isolated. But we do okay. We do okay.
I know. Listen, we're gonna get to a lot of things. We're gonna talk about the Ice House project and a lot of things. We're gonna talk about Ice House. It sounds like a good beer.
There you go.
But it's actually not a good beer. It's a malt liquor that that low budget dudes be drinking on. Have you ever seen Ice House malt liquor?
No, but we put a little hissing Chondro on the label.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool. What is on the Ice House label? The actual can.
Excuse me?
The can. I was asking Keto, the can of Ice House.
I don't know. Keto, you got to go with that one.
Do I look like I drink Ice House, bro? What the fuck?
I mean, I've drank Ice House, man. There's no shame
I've
in it.
never had an Ice House beer in my life.
So you just say I'm the only hobo. I mean,
it looked like water in the can, bro.
It is, bro. It's actually not, water. Bro. It's not water. It looks more like dehydrated piss.
Ooh.
But
I can tell you about. I can talk to you about some 211 or something. You know what I'm saying,
bro? The problem with 211s was always you got to keep drinking 211s so you don't have a headache, but you just get drunker and more out of control until you end up in
$1, baby.
Until you end up in central booking. That's the good thing about 211s. You probably gonna end up in central booking, or you just decide to have a terrible headache the next day. Rich, let's get your background a little bit. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. Grew up in California, always chasing herps through the hills of Southern California. Okay. But, I was actually a fisher as well. I did a lot of fly fishing, then migrated north, went to University of California, Berkeley, majored in biology, specifically evolutionary biology of behavior with the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, and actually did my work with shorebird ecology. We were studying the ecological control of spacing behavior and non-breeding wintering shorebirds. So it was like a 7-year project there. Worked with the Bodega Bay Marine Laboratory. Did some graduate work in population dynamics of shorebirds. Shortly after that, I moved across the bay from Berkeley area to Marin County, where I was a science teacher. And then I was primarily, there was a great, still in existence, called the East Bay Vivarium in Berkeley. Have all sorts of wild critters there. So I used to go there, check out the snakes, and then right next to it, there was an acoustic guitar place called the Fifth String. So I used to play guitar over there. But saw some of the basins that the vivarium had. But I got really into king snakes and corns. I did land pelted snake for a bit, then tangerine, milk snakes, but then started high transition to mangrove snakes, rear fang snakes. So
shout out to the kings.
Yeah, and so then went into the mangroves and then started breeding hydrodynasties, they're rear saltwater cobras. Then moved up to Alaska where it got really, it was interesting. So I brought these false water cobras up to Alaska, and I kind of like put them in my pocket when I flew through the airplanes to meet my wife and eventually get married, and had these snakes up here and didn't know that Alaska, any venomous snakes, regardless of the amount or the toxicity levels, are illegal unless they're born and bred in Alaska. So next thing you know, I have the troopers over to my place, and they call up. They said, you either got to be a zookeeper or you had to have bred them here. And I said,
how they found out you was smuggling?
Did your girl snitch on you?
No, man, it just sort of leaked out somehow. I don't know how it did. But, next thing you know, I got the troopers at my place, and they say, you got to contact this person up in Anchorage, this zookeeper in Anchorage, because he's like, that person was like the source of, to give the permits to keep these rear fang snakes out here. And so the person at the zoo says, no, I don't know very much about him, but there's a guy in Juneau, Rich Culver. He knows all about these particular snakes. And so that's me. So this whole ironic thing about it is they wouldn't let me keep these snakes, even though the zookeeper told them that I was the person to contact if they had any questions about them. So the troopers escorted me back to the airport. I had to box these snakes up into a box and then put that box into a wooden box. And then I had to bring that to the airport. So they had to ship that thing down back to the breeder in California where I got these snakes. And he felt bad because I was on a waiting list to get these freshwater cobras. And so he gave me a Dumerol. And I said, okay. And that Dumerol then became, like, my wife really enjoyed it. And that was my snake that I used in the schools. Since my daughters were, growing up. So I was doing all the snake and presentations around the school districts here in the capital city. And then naturally, once, I've always liked the arboreals, but they were always.
But hold on though. Talk about how you you put these straight into your pocket.
I did. That's my wife's response. Excuse that. Yes, I took them in my pocket through those because the breeder said, "Oh, I bring snakes across. I fly with them all the time. Just put them in your pocket, kind of like put your stuff through security, but carry your jacket under your." That was the things were easy. Put your jacket over your sleeve, walk through, put your jacket on. They're on snake sacks. I went to the bathroom, took them out of the snake sacks, and threw them into my carry-on baggage.
Why does it sound like something that some dude would tell some girl on Cocaine Cowboys? Listen,
cartel.
Cocaine.
It sounds like a cartel move.
Put this cocaine in your jacket and put it over across your arm.
It was classic, and I thought I had it done. And then next thing you know, I get this knock on the door. And the troopers, and I was all cool with it. They say, "Hey, we understand you got some."
How long after you get home did you get that knock?
Probably a week. It was. I can't believe how quick they narrowed in on me. It was like hawks. And I don't know if it leaked out. My wife worked at the hospital. I don't know if she was, a little talking about her soon-to-be husband brought these snakes up, and that could have been it.
Somebody ratted on you, Rich.
I know.
Somebody turned you in. They thought they was going to get the reward money, Rich.
And then the people were saying that these lionfish, they sell these tropical fish. These lionfish have more venom than these false water cobras. Because basically the venom in these false water cobras is basically an anticoagulant, so they can bite their prey, and then it doesn't coagulate, and then they can bleed to death and take these food. So anyways, then I said, okay, crap, if I can't have these snakes, which I really love, I can't have mangrove snakes, which I really liked at that time, and I really didn't want to get into chondros, because at that time, back in the mid to latter 90s, they were all imports and kind of looking funky, dehydrated, and all that kind of stuff, parasitic out. And so I waited for a bit and then started, constantly checking things out. And then, whoa, started getting at the tail end of the king snake forum. And that sort of tailed out. And I ran into Maxwell and then Rico, because Rico was from Washington before he moved to Tennessee. And he said he was into salmon before he got into catfish. And so Rico and I started getting, it's talking a lot. And Maxwell's waiting list was so big, and Rico says, hey, I can get you a couple chondros. I said, oh, yeah?
Just a couple.
It's like, first line's free, second one costs you type of thing, So he got me.
What? Why is there so much weird drug stuff going on around here? What is this?
I guess when you pay $50K for a snake or two, it gets that way. But anyway,
Rich was over there clacking that math, baby. Clacking that Alaskan math.
Yo, Rich is a chondro cowboy, man.
Well, so Rico sent me a couple PNGs, and got me really addicted onto that. And then, like I said, you get a couple and you say, wow, those are so cool. And then I talked to Tim Morris.
That's my guy.
Yeah, he was the dude, man. We'll get into that section in a bit. So,
shout out to
Tim Morris, and he said he was, in between breedings. And so I bounced into Jeff Hudson. Now that guy, I don't know, he doesn't get a lot of, notoriety or claim or what he did, but the guy bought out Tony Nicolai's collection. And Tony had, in addition to his basins, he had some badass chondros. I mean, his lemon trees, his old yellows, high yellows were over the top. Yeah. And he had some separately tricolors that were lights out. But another type of line that he had, and I have not seen any captive bred Arus that come close to the high white stuff that he had. So I was blown away. So anyway, he sold all that collection to Hudson, and I actually at first went in because I was trying to find these Arus. And Jeff, man, he said, I got all this shit. And he was like higher priced. But he had the killer shit. And so
do you like a ballpark figure he paid?
Excuse me?
You know like a ballpark figure that Jeff Hudson paid for that collection?
Yeah. I don't know. For example, all I know is back in 98, our Arus was selling for $2,000. 2,500.
Cocaine cowboys.
Yeah, exactly. So he says, I go, I just would like to get some of your Arus. And he goes, 2,500. I was going, man, at that time, condos were like 750, 550, 525. And I was going, and then he goes, look at this. And it was like this yearling. He goes, this is my wife's yearling, but I'll let it go to you. And it was just like, see, the thing about the Nicolai Arus, they were not only were they amazingly high white and potent, but if you look at Arus now, sometimes you'll see them, the blue is like in blotch around the green. But his like white ventrals, blue, like blazing sapphire blue, and then this like, oh my God, put on the Kino sunglasses with white. And I said, I gotta get that. So he says, I'll sell you a pair. It's like $6K. I go, whoa. I'm working in the school district. I'm actually a fly fisher. I'm a freelancer. Yeah. And he goes, then immediately says, oh, and I got this tricolor. Oh, and then I got this other snake. Oh, and then he shows me this Morris line snake, which is mighty blue. Blacker than black, blue and black, mite phase, just crazy. And so what they did, he goes, yeah, I can sell you that one too. And I'm going, oh, what are we up to now? It's just like ching, 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 ching.
You was up in there like this, Rich. You was up in there dropping.
So, before I was going to go jump into this lake, I wanted to know how deep it was. So I said, you sure that's a Morris snake? Why isn't Tim selling it? And so I contact him, and Tim's saying that back in those days, we didn't know what they were getting. So they would breed these snakes, and they needed money because they were starving breeders. You know, they were just doing this as hobbies, which we all are.
Yeah.
And so, what I heard is that there was this place in Florida called Rare Earth Reptiles, and they would sell. You know, I think at that time, John Holland and Tim would keep what they wanted, and then they would sell a portion of the clutch just as a batch because they didn't know about holdbacks. They didn't know what they were getting. And so then there were these people like Hudson. He was a jiu-jitsu instructor and a chiropractor. And he must have had a lot of money. I don't know if he was a cocaine guy in the place.
Everything about this sounds like blow, man. It's just the way you explained, like seeing all the snakes at one point in time. It sounds like the part where Pee Wee Herman was heating the cocaine up on a hot plate. That's what it sounds like.
Hudson would buy like half a clutch. We'd buy 8, 9 from this clutch, 8, 9 from this clutch, 8, 9 from that. So when you do that, it's almost like getting all the holdbacks. So then he would let them sort of morph out, let them go through their changes, and keep certain ones and sell certain ones. And so he built up his collection and also generated some revenue because he was buying killer snakes.
Yeah.
And so Tim goes, oh, yeah, that was when I did my Tim Moore's Blue female to Mr. Blue the second time. And so I told Jeff, okay, I'll buy that one because I was still on the waiting list for Tim. And so I bought that Mighty Blue. I bought a Sipperleaf animal from him. I bought a pair of Arus from him. And I had like 5 snakes, and I was going, oh my God. I was trying to figure out how am I going to pay for this. And then he goes, you know what? You should definitely buy this other snake. I'm going, oh my God, get out of here.
You get your ass.
Yeah, so he's going to be the snake of snakes. And I go, that's what you said for the one before that. That's what you said for the 2 Arus. That's what you said for this one. That's what you said for the Sipperleaf. He goes, no. This is Dream cross a Termesi lemon tree.
Okay.
And exactly. It's like your teeth are shut. You're going, what's going on? And so
how many snakes are you in? Like what, 6 snakes at this point?
8. I had my 2 from Rico, and then I got 6 from Hudson.
No, I'm saying how many had Hudson talked you into buying before you actually received a shipment from him?
6, maybe 8. I'd have to look correct.
Okay, go ahead.
I was shaking. So he goes, this is this lemon tree cross Dream, and then he says Dream, and this I think I tried to breed Dream to Matrix from Maxwell earlier and didn't work out, and I tried to do it one time after that, and Hudson says I blew the breeding. I just trashed it, but now I think I got 9 babies from this one, or 6 or 9. I can't remember.
No, did he?
So I got one. Brett Meselman got one. Kim Heller got one. I think she went through rough time. She sold one, and then a couple other people got one from that very first clutch, and it was like, whoa! And that ended up being Dream Baby, and she was insanely beautiful. She turned off like a sort of first. She went through this sort of maroon to like a soft green to a high yellow, and then all eggshell robin blue. And yeah, it was amazing. Then Brett Meselman, before he passed away, his Daydream just turned into a ridiculous female too. And then he just said that he didn't have the name recognition because he said that female needs to be bred because of the genetics. So he got in touch with Greg. He did a breeding loan with Greg. And that Greg did it with Calico, and then Cal Jr. And I did mine with Mighty Blue. And I had 9 babies. I had like 12 eggs that hatched. I had 9 that lived. I think 6 of them went ultra blue. Amazing. I was like, whoa, this is so crazy. But that wasn't my first breed. My first breed was that Aru pair that I did, that I got that Hudson pair. And I was just learning, and Rico and Greg were trying to help me out. And I think I had 21 eggs and 22 hats. I was going, where did this come from? I said, it doesn't, 21 eggs, 22 hatch, 21 eggs, 22 hatch. Whoa. And I had twins, and I tried to have those 2. I wanted to try to, rear up 2 twins and see how they would change. But unfortunately, one of them passed away. So that Aru was just amazing. And I don't know, but people should still look into that, because then I took that Aru, which I named Miss Piggy, because she was like the 2100 gram, huge, 6.5 foot beast of a female. And every male I put in with her looked like it was going to be.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah, she was huge. She
So
was
You had a BBW Chondro?
no,
she was
hold on.
thick as my arm, man.
Hold on. We got big chondros out there in the past, and it wasn't just all Rob slamming overfeed.
Girl had some huge ones too, though.
No,
So
I just find that funny that you got a chondro with 2,000 grams, and
yeah,
all I heard was how Rob used to overfeed his animals, and you had in the root. So
no, exactly.
that's cool.
This one was a beast. That Nikolai Aru line, if I could ever, Greg Schroeder, man, he used to always appreciate that line too, because they were badass. And so I bred Miss Piggy again. She threw out some beautiful high white Arus. And then I said, oh, then everyone got in this outcross gig. And I said, okay, I'll try to outcross.
Hold on, before you go there though, with her being so big, as such a huge chondro she was, how was it getting her babies established? Were they typical Aru, or were they pretty easy?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think it was my first couple clutches, so it was tough. I used to be coached by Tim. I used to call Tim. I said, what do I do, buddy, man? Help me out, man. He said, drink a few beers, and when you get to the point where you want to grab by the tail and rack their heads on the wall, take a step back and leave them for tomorrow. That's what he would say to me.
No, Jeff, he said that was in the Aru. He said that was in the Aru line from
He did say something about the first two from Rico was a PNG. Also, like
no, we're talking about the one from Tony Nikolai though. He said that was a pure Aru line.
He asked that question before he talked about Tony Nikolai's animals.
Yeah, no, the pure Aru lines, man. They were the Nikolai pure Aru lines. They were the best Arus I've ever seen. And they were 50-50 getting them to go. Everybody said there would be a pain in the ass, but I did pretty well with them, and they grew rapidly. And then, from then on, all my clutches seemed to be relatively easy. I don't know if it was my beginner, but then, my wife is kind of a spiritual lady, and she used to always just tell me, those don't be so hard on these babies. They'll eat when they're ready. Sometimes that works. So I think it's a mental gig, but she's always the calming force on that.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. So, but anyway, what I wanted to get to, there was another guy by the name of Shane Snyder, and unfortunately he passed away. I think he got hit by a car on a bike ride. He and I were into these high white Arus at this one particular time, back when. And I wanted to come up with a high white maroon neonate. It couldn't have been an Aru, but it was just going to be a high white designer. And so I had from one of these, from my Sipperly line, I had a maroon neo that morphed into a sort of a speckled white adult. And I took that one and crossed that with one of my Nikolai Arus, and then came up with like a 75-25 maroon to yellow neo, and all of them were beautiful whites. Oh, they were great. And then I got overwhelmed. I got too excited. At that time, early in my years, I just went crazy. I had localities. I had high yellows. I had Sipperlies. I had tricolors. I had my blues. I had my dreams. And finally, I just had to say, you know what? I got to downsize a little bit, because the collection's sort of getting like the Richichi guy who said he wanted to have 150 adult chondros. I couldn't do that. I had children, and this was just a hobby, and I'm also a fly fisher, and I'm a writer, photographer. So I'm always out on excursions. So I had to downsize, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go for blues and crazy stuff. But I sold everything, Europe, some here in the States, and I just started focusing on blues. And I went full circle back to Tim. I said, Tim, man, I got to get some more blue lines from you. And he says, okay. So I got one of his last. I bought a couple of them, and they all turned out males. And he said, oh, I'm trying to get you a female. And I got into his last of his daddy pants.
No, did he?
And Morris blue female clutch. And I think they only had a couple of them. And he and Buddy had to divide the clutch up, and then they got 2 each or something like that. So I got another male, and I said, shit, Tim, you're just giving me males. And so then he had this clutch. which were the legend and the Gordon blue female from Steve Gordon. And Steve Gordon's blue female was an F1 Sarong, I believe, that he bred that to a clutch mate, not a direct, no, a fib, but not a direct clutch mate of Mr. Blue. I could be wrong. I'd have to look at the lineages. And so he gave me this female Neo that turned into this most amazing blue female. And I call her Tim Morris Blue Female 2 or 3, depending on what someone might have jumped me and got 2 or whatever. But anyway, it's a Tim Morris Blue Female. And she's badass. And she throws out super blues every single clutch. And I just told Tim, thank you. It looks just like his powder. It's just this beautiful blue, big female. Well, she's probably 1,600 grams. She's huge. And then I bred her with all my Dreamline crosses. And then I got from another old timer, Mark Twigg, who used to be on the Chondro forums. Then he went into selling mice, and I don't know what happened to him. But he texts me, he emails one time, he goes, I got a blue female if you're interested. I said, well, I'm always interested. And so this was from a Mike Bear. He was an old timer. And he had a bluebird grasshopper cross sarong. And she turned out amazingly blue. And so I got her from Mark Twigg. And that was sort of my foundation. A couple Tim Morris ones, a couple some Hudson that got through Tim. And then this Mike Bear one, which is a Bodigatsu animal. And then I put all those together and then just started playing around, and it got good. It got good.
You got some interesting stories, Rich. And you know some interesting people. I gotta ask you this question.
Sure thing.
At any point in time, did you hook up with a guy named Chuck Vogel in a shack in the woods in Florida?
No, but I know Chuck. Because when Chuck was helping out Rico, I sent him a bunch of Alaska salmon for a barbecue. I said, here you go, man. Make sure everything's good.
That sounds like some Chuck Vogel shit.
I know when they were going through, when Rico sadly passed away and they were going through, sort of auctioning off all his stuff. And Chuck had some of his canary chondros. And I was trying to get a few, but I was sort of always end up out of the loop because I guess I was so far away and all this and stuff. So yeah, I really haven't got snakes with the exception of Tim and Jeff and Maxwell. Excuse me. And those were, long ago. And then I got a little slide project going on with some really killer shit that's here now that hopefully I'm starting to condition them up. They've been acclimated for a long, long time. I'm going to condition them. And I'm trying to plan out these breedings, so because I've got my daughter's wedding coming up, and I got a documentary film that I'm working on for some other stuff, and I don't want to get eggs or hatchlings at that particular time, so I'm trying to figure it all out. Because I've learned that here in Alaska, I used to start pairing off much like the rest of the U.S., but now we've changed a little bit. Usually, they always starting in October, and we start losing darkness too rapidly, and then back in January you start gaining daylight too rapidly. So I don't know if photo period plays a role in it, but I played around with it and I had some success. And then for 2 years I had zero success, and then I sort of found a little happy medium of calendar year. And this year I'm gonna try to explore a little bit more about that, and hopefully do 2 pairings in a couple months, and then I'll wait a couple months and I'll do another 2 pairings and see how that goes.
Okay. Cool. All in all, man, like, how did we get to the Ice House project? Like, how did we get to the Ice House project is really what I know from all your other pairings.
Would you say how do we learn about it?
Yeah, like, can we talk about the Ice House projects and where they began?
Yeah, like I said, I would say that my and I read about everybody claims their own gig, and that's perfectly fine. And and I haven't got. I guess I'm so distantly removed. I'm not in the social media gig. I'm just a hobbyist. I enjoy this because I'm a biologist. I'm up here in Alaska, and I got long winters, and I just wanted to have sort of like some people do model airplanes, some people go to bars, some people chase ladies. I just got into my own biology project here, and so I would call it my raw materials. I had my Dreamline, I had my Morris lines, I had my Buddy Gotskers, I had my Maxwell stuff, and I had that. When I sort of look at genetic trees, and I said, I'm not into diluting these genes. This is just me. Everybody has their own way to look at it, and everybody can be opinionated in their own particular way. But I just saw things as I didn't want to dilute items. I said a lot of people, even before me, bred a lot of generations. It's not like fruit flies where you can do 50 generations in a month. As you know, these chondros, you got to breed them, you got to prepare them, you got to give them a year off. Sometimes it fails, and then you got to wait for these neos to go through 2 years. So there's a lot of time in there. So I looked at lineages. I tried to see what the phenotypes of those lineages were. And I tried to concentrate various phenotypes, what we see. And I said, there's got to be something to it, what you see, and something that the hormonal expression of that, if you look at the genetic lines. And so I tried to take blue animals and the closest thing to blue animals. And I didn't want to take blue 2 generations removed. I wanted to say blue by blue is going to hopefully give me some blue. Some of these people say, oh, I had blue for 15 generations ago. Well, yeah, I don't look like my great grandfather either. And so I tried to use that approach, and some people might, and I'm open to it. They have their ways of looking at it. So I took that, excuse me, and I knew that Dream looked blue. I knew that on my Mighty Blue side that Mr. Blue was pretty blue. And I knew that Mr. Blue's mom was pretty blue. And then who Mr. Blue bred to was pretty blue. And not just pretty blue, pretty damn blue. And so I said, I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to see if I concentrated that. Boom, took that, and holy shit. It was a rush because I got 0 yellow neos. I saw maybe, I don't see green come out of my neos. What is green? That's why I call them tree pythons. They come out maroon, they go light, they go white flecked, and then the excitement happens. And so then I took those. I said, okay, those look good. Well, that's like my bluebird grasshopper stuff. That bluebird grasshopper, the bluebird was blue, and I believe that was a pretty new blue at that particular time. Grasshopper had some from Sarong, look, it was kind of tinted blue. Some were hormonal. And then I had another blue animal got, and I said, okay, let's just do those. And then I started messing around with some of those items. And I tried infusing an Aru with that, and it just gave me a green snake. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do that. It's not part of my project goals at this particular time, because I already did that. I got so many chondros. I said, I just have to downsize. Otherwise, I'm just breeding for breeding. And I didn't want to do that. That's just like having a bunch of children and they don't know what to do with them. I wanted to breed for an objective. And my objective was to create some pretty cool looking designer snakes. And so then I messed around. And like I said, I had some champion males from my first Dream Baby Mighty Blue breeding. They were like, let's see, I had 0810, who sadly passed away, 089, and 085. So I had 3 that they were such good breeders. Now I still only have 089, but they were such good breeders. They would breed the perch if I left it in there. They would just well wrap anything. My wife used to go, "You're cruel to that female. Look at that male's tearing up that female. She can't even sleep at night." And so those males were so good, and they were starting to breed at like 18 months old. They were just breeding and breeding and breeding. And so at back in the early days, like 2004, 2005, I sold a lot. We weren't to that point where let's hold back snakes and see what they really look like. We were just, okay, these sort of 3 maroon ones look kind of cool, reduced pattern or had a crazy pattern, or looked bright yellow, and then we sell off 10.
What a TPC.
It would have been so cool to see what those other 10 look like. I remember this one guy, Mike Lockwood, he sold out the snakes. I sold him a dream animal from that '08 clutch. It turned into the most amazing super blue female, gnarly. It was, and then I almost wanted to buy it back, but I couldn't afford it. So I thought that Barry Manson bought it, threw a couple lines out, and then it got the Nido and it kind of passed away. But it was terrible. It went through too many hands. So, but that's sort of how the Ice House project began. I was fortunate to get great bloodlines, and I did not want to dilute. I refused to dilute.
So you, from what I'm hearing, you really worked with roos at first for the high whites, and then you went to the blues.
Yeah.
So I did from trafficking the whites to trafficking the blue M30s.
Excuse me?
Never mind. We ever heard of blue M30s?
Yeah, right. No. And then I did some hot yellows, and then some tricolors, and then the blues. Yeah, I did some. Yeah, exactly.
So I think that what I want to go back to is your relationship with Tim Morris. Tim Morris has always been a great person and a great friend of the show. He's wonderful. What all would you say that you guys have worked on besides what you have told us about?
Well, it's good because I was teaching, and Tim was teaching. I believe in middle school. Matter of fact, I taught.
What grade do you teach?
Excuse me, I taught 6 through 12 in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Tim had this little thing. As a matter of fact, I was just cleaning up a briefcase about last month, and I found one of Tim's little things. He had this little program called Tails and Scales, and it was sort of like an intro to just get kids more aware and appreciate, herbs, reptiles.
Yeah.
So he and I used to chat about that. Had a couple phone calls back in the old days. It's just more down to earth, the appreciation of one teaching. Philosophies of life, where we were in our lives, and also, he taught me a lot about, just getting into chondros. What I mean about that is, the hardships of getting these little bastards to feed, starting them off on tails just to get them, and then to heads, and then finally get them to go. So we brainstormed a lot about that. And, I was going to mention this because, in terms of feeding and getting these neos to go, as I mentioned earlier, I thought as I had more clutches, I became a more efficient I was into the subtleties of feeding. I've sort of broken down from being a behavioral biologist and evolutionary biologist. I sort of look at feeding and neos in particular into 3 stages. They've got the strike, they've got the coil, and they got the swallow. And strike is a reflex. And a reflex, by definition, doesn't have any brain interpretation. Because that brain, if you had to go sensory, interpretation, motor reflex, that's a 3-part, and the brain interpretation is takes a little bit of time. So evolution evolved with the reflex to not have that brain interpretation. It's like sensory reflex, sensory motor. And so I look at that snake strike. You can get that instinctual reflex strike. Then you got to get that snake to hold it and coil. Once you get that hold and coil, you got to get that swallow reflex. Sometimes you can get the strike and the swallow, but you miss that coil. And then I refer to those as lazy feeders because I don't know. You get this one that strike, they don't coil, they just hang it in their mouth, and they'll eventually drop it, at least in my experience. So I want them to strike it, coil it, and not let go, and then to swallow. So if I can get that strike, coil, swallow reflex, I think I've got that neo going. And so a lot of times I'll strike, and if they just strike and hold it, I sort of give it a little jiggle a little bit because I want them to feel like, hey, I got to coil that. Once they coil it, then I back off a little bit, and I want them to work on that swallow. If I don't get either of the two, I'll work on a head because I can work on that swallowing reflex. Now I got the swallowing reflex. I got that strike. I got to work on the coil. We already know the swallow, so then I can get all those three components put together, and then I think I got that neo down, and it's on its way to establishment. That's just the way I've been looking at it. Like I said, these are things that I've worked out, things that I think that they've been successful in my collection. I don't know if they're going to work in others, but who's to say? I was always one of those things that said, all these people that bred snakes before me, you got to read about them, accept them, learn from them, and then become like a chef. As you try different recipes, you can choose different things, and you can take it from there. When I taught algebra back in the schools, I told my kids, I don't want you to teach just regurgitation of algebra. I want you to learn the application so that you can learn. It's like having a knife, a fork, and spoon, and you can go to any restaurant and know what you're going to use. You don't use a knife for a bowl of soup. You use a spoon. So I want to try to teach it in that particular way. And that's the way I sort of look at my chondro stuff, because I'm sort of a science nerd. That's what it's all from lower school all the way through college. And I try to use that in my chondros as well.
You got a question from CJ. He wants to know if you want to talk about this snake.
Sure thing. Sure. Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a beautiful snake. I'm trying to remember specifically which one that was. I think that was definitely from one of my dream. It's either it's one of my dream blues, and I don't know if it's I think it's either 010 or 09. And to that Tim Morris blue female. I have a daughter that went to a private school in New York City with a really high tuition. And as my daughter Misha would say, my dad paid my tuition on snakes. So yeah, I regret selling that one, but I did. It was only because like I said, during that time, I was getting snakes that were looking like that. And when you get a clutch of 10 and you see 6 of those, it's like, whoa. And that one was unique in the sense that it retained a lot of its mite phase in little blotches. So yeah, matter of fact, I got one that's about maybe 20 months old in the other room that looks almost like that. Not as much blue, but a lot black, and sort of looks like the old crazy that Tim hatched out moons ago with Daddy Pants and his Tim Morris blue female. Yeah, exciting stuff. When you see those animals that change like that, like I was saying, there's no green. It just turns into a light, and then the powdery white that turns to just a blazing blue. I've got one that, again, from this Tim Morris blue female 3 or what do you want to call it, that I'm almost certain it's a he. Excuse me, a she. She is like the bluest. I named her Cobalt 60 because she's like this radioactive blue snake that's so insane. I'm trying to get her going. I think she probably has another year or so, year and a half, and then we'll put her in the projects as well. But it was interesting because just that Cobalt 70 that I was just talking, Cobalt 60, excuse me, that I was talking about, that snake, clutch mate, is almost entirely high yellow with some blue on her. Go figure. And I think that all goes back to that dream and that limit tree line that's deep. That one must be like 5 generations removed, but in the same clutch. One yellow, maroon neos. They were all maroon. Don't get me wrong, but this one went yellow, and then Cobalt 60 went blue, and then the third one that I got from it, the other ones I sold, is that crazy mite phase blue, yellow, little bit of green, black, and yeah, with yellow diamonds down his back. And so those are some crazy stuff that have come out. So yeah, and I'm hoping to, like I said, we're going to do 2 pairings in a couple months, and then 2 pairings after that. We'll see how those go. And I think those have, if they click, they should have a lot of potential.
Okay. So you talked about some of the people that you met earlier. Could you explain to me back in the day, well, from when you started till now, how did you go about relationship building and building these contacts and this vast network of really good breeders that you do?
Back in, like I said, I got in at the tail end of the king snake form, and then it was Chondro Web, and Chondro Web was cool. And some Chondro Web, people either loved it or hated it, and very few in between. They loved it in the sense that it was extremely, extremely informative. You had Greg Maxwell, which the guy was a stud. Some people hated him. I got along great with Greg. He helped me out a lot. And it was strictly moderated to cut the crap. There was a lot of bullshit going on, and Greg wanted it to be, captive born and bred, sort of funnel it, great source of information, good source of debate, but let's keep it moderated. The good and the bad. I was actually a moderator for Chondro Web. That's where I met Kim Burge, Kim Heller, Marshall, and Chondro Romano, and
John. Hey, what's up, John?
And we had just this. We used to every day there would be discussions, and everyone would sign in and check in. So it would be like this little online family. It was like the early 90s. The late 90s, 2000s, early 2000s, excuse me. And then, there was some animosity, and I could see how ego's coming through there. And then Greg Schroeder and Greg Maxwell, Oil and Water, is sort of like the Hayfield and McCoys. Separated. And so Greg wanted to have a less moderated, more open to include locality animals, wild caught animals, and more freedom. Less moderated, more freedom, mildly moderated. So we came up with the MVF. And so there was a transition, and we migrated to the MVF community. Chondro Web, Greg was sort of getting out, sold his collection, Mark Kelly, et cetera. And MVF was rocking. Was rocking every day. We had such great. We had Carrie from Chicago. You should meet her. She's a good. She was called Big Snakes, and she had some killer shit. I don't know if I still get communication. She came up on a tour with her grandmother up here in Juneau, and I showed her around. But yeah, she was great. Johnny Blue, John Holland, Tim would show up a little bit, Brad Johnson, Marshall, Chondro Romano. It was, and a couple other people that just skipped my mind at the particular time. Rico would bop in there, and we'd have killer threads. We had Rob Stinky from Long Island. We had these great conversations. They would go on and on. We had even, what was it, Montini? Yeah, he was in
Joe Montini. Shout out to Joe Montini.
Yeah, I think he wanted to get a couple of my snakes, but he wanted a carpondrome. And I said, I remember my philosophy of we don't dilute, we don't make carpondros either. Anyway, so that MVF was like Chavino. Chavino started off as like the coolest broker. But then he became a breeder too. But we used to call him the coolest broker back in the old days. And Mike Rico. And it was like we would have all these insane, beautiful debates, conversations, threads, picture sharing. It was insane. We had the great time. And then social media came. Facebook. I call it Facebook. But that came, and it sort of, for me at least, I just didn't want to stay with it because it seemed like the Facebook gigs. Oh yeah, even Rob the Squirrel had his own all chondro stuff. He even tried his little forums and stuff like that. Rob and I used to have some great conversations.
Rob.
Yeah, the squirrel. And
Squirrel. Y'all called him the squirrel.
yeah. Yeah. See, this is like, way back, and then the Facebook came in there, and everybody could be an authority. There was no moderating. If you question them, they defriended you. No longer could get in, and that was just bullshit. That wasn't true. At Berkeley and the graduate programs, Museum of Earth Zoology, debate is what makes things happen. We used to debate against UC Davis, and it just got a sour taste for me. So I just dropped out of that scene, and I just said, I'll just, people, if they want to get some of these ice house chondros, they'll contact me directly. And I'm sad to say I haven't put up any Instagram. It's on my list. My daughters are way more hip on the social media stuff than I am. But, like I said, I do my small breedings. People contact me. They can get a few animals here and there. And, yeah. So, but yeah, I think once that was sort of how it all progressed. And then once that social media thing, and everybody could have a website, everybody could do their own thing, everybody was their own authority, and that's was like, well, that's not. And then it seemed like those people that just came in, they had no regard for the people that laid out the foundation. It was because of us and all the hard work and failures that we had, because they can be successful. I worked with Jim Avey. Maxwell and I worked with Jim Avey, and we put together those AV incubators that started off with the cooler incubator back in the old days. Naturally, I got a habitat system incubator, but back in the old days, those coolers working AV, we were doing that. We did these prototypes. Greg and I had these prototype egg boxes. We did all that shit.
Y'all crawl so we can run.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't hoard all that knowledge underneath my wing, because when I just, for example, fly fishing, they told me, we'll share this stuff with you under one condition: is you share it with others. And like I said over and over again, it's not to say that I'm right, it's to say that I've had success. And it's sort of like eye surgery on these pterygiums, just a little scar tissue on my eye, which I have, and there's like 12 or 14 different procedures for one item. And if there's that many approaches to remove one little scar tissue, they haven't refined it, because if they had it refined, there'd be one method. There's 14 methods. They haven't figured it out yet, And for example, incubating eggs, there's so many ways to incubate eggs, so many ways you can kill them, but that's just, find the way that works for you. And, I'm just appreciative that during the times that, when we were starting out, that we could, pick up the phone, call someone up, shoot them an email, call someone up. Now we got texting and stuff of that nature. It makes it a lot easier. But yeah, Rico and Tim, Maxwell, the squirrel, Marshall, we all had some really cool conversations back there. Marshall's a mean guitar player too. He likes those guitars, but yeah, we had some good times back there.
Shout out to those guys, man.
Absolutely, man. Those guys
all good guys.
Those guys are all studs.
For sure.
And now, like Dave D, I'll never forget when he bought some animals from me. He sends me a letter, and he says he wants to buy this, this, and this. And I said, oh, sure. And then I open it up, and I go, usually people like payment plans, right? You buy some high-end snakes, payment plan. I go, fuck, paid in full. So I call him up, and I said, Dave, man, what's up? He goes, I don't do any payment plans. I pay in full. Whoa. So yeah, so then I ship them out these animals, and to Alaska Airlines, and they get delayed. Fuck me, man.
Wow.
I'm going, Dave, I'm so sorry, man. They're delayed. And so I got an account manager for FedEx. No. Yeah, I do it FedEx. I got an account manager. I should have sent him at Alaska Airlines. I got an account manager. He's following them through. And Dave follows them to the airport on a Saturday, and they're sitting out there. And he ends up getting them on a Saturday instead of waiting until a Monday, because they've already been a couple days late. And yeah, then he finally picks them up. But yeah, Dave's got some good shit, man.
So how does shipping and importing, or shipping and receiving, necessarily work for you all the way in Alaska?
It's a bitch. So I'm certified or verified to ship in both Alaska Airlines. Alaska Airlines is the only airlines in Juneau. So if it's on their particular route, life is good. It's pretty pricey, but I cover the price of the snake because if they're going to pay that high-end price of a snake, regardless, FedEx, Alaska, I cover it. It's basically what it is. Alaska Airlines, they have a pet program that they ship them, but they walk them to the next delivery. You got to have X number of hours between flights. You got to schedule that 2 weeks in advance. They've got to be in verified museum shipping boxes, which you get from the standard reptile place. They give me 3/4 inch instead of 1/2 inch. So you do that. You can insure Alaska Airlines to the particular value, which you cannot insure up to the value with FedEx. FedEx have to go through that that shipping certification where they throw your test box and the centrifuge, the whole shit show. I've got an account manager, which is really cool because he monitors. When I tell him I'm shipping snakes, he follows them. And so I don't have to go through 1-800 this and this and this and this and get put to some dispatch that's like in Texas and my snakes are in Missouri. So he follows them. He got the inside contact. If there's an issue, excuse me, he makes the contacts and follows them. But the issue is FedEx here in Juneau. I gotta go to the airport, drop those animals off at 7:30 in the morning. They catch a 10:30 flight to Anchorage. They're in Anchorage, then they got to catch. They got like a minimal delay time. Can't delay. Got to go from Anchorage. Then they go to Tennessee.
Yeah, the World Hub in Memphis. I used to work there.
Exactly. They're from Memphis. Then they go out to their other hubs. So it's easier to go overnight.
Stop in Memphis, grab a pair of Nikes.
I get 4 hours. It's a 4-hour time range. It's easier to go from Alaska to the East Coast because I saved my 4 hours because at 9 o'clock when they're shipped, they're delivered for hold for pickup on the East Coast at 9 a.m. It's 5 a.m. here. So at 5 a.m., I wake up at 4, I check it out. Okay, they're there. But when anybody ships a snake to me, like a long time ago, I got one from Gary moons and moons and moons ago. I guess I got a Maruki from him. It can't. It has to overnight in Seattle. They got to take it and put it in an office, drop it off in an office, and it's got to catch the morning flight here. So it's a 2-day, even though it says 1 day, even when you buy something like merchandise, I buy something that says overnight at FedEx. It's not overnight. You got to add a day. So I pay for overnight, but it takes me 2 days. If I pay for 2 days, it takes me 3 days. So it's pain in the ass. That's why Alaska Airlines gets it there, but it's like 3 times expensive. For example, shipping a snake from here to Florida with FedEx is probably $200. But my account manager did some computer change, so I've got a business account now. It's a little cheaper. So he said, ship a snake to the East Coast. So Kenny's been bugging me. He wants this Morris dream mail that I got. He goes, that's the snake I want. The little pudgy wrestler that you guys had on a while ago. So he's been bugging
Kenny
me.
Richichi. He called him a pudgy wrestler. That's my dog, though. Listen, when I met Kenny was lean as hell, man. Kenny looked like he'll body slam somebody on one of them tables.
No, Kenny not pudgy no more.
Yeah, Kenny.
He's not, man. He's not. So he wants to pick up one. If I said,
Rich, you came a long way from smuggling snakes in your pocket.
I have.
Yeah.
Because,
Chondro Cowboy.
So it's about $200 to FedEx it, but it's like $400 to do Alaska Airlines. But you can insure it, and it's going hand to hand, and it's not going to be throwing a bunch of boxes. This goes in the pet chamber. It's a little different. So I always discuss that with the eventual buyer. I said, I might split it with you, otherwise you can FedEx it. But to get Alaska Airlines, they got to go to the airport and they got to go pick it up. Another slightly inconvenient. So, it's way you got to weigh what you want, and if you're buying.
How much cheaper is it to do? How much more expensive is it to do FedEx than it is to ship to the airport?
Like I said, it's almost double. So for example, the East Coast from
about $100. And would you use Delta?
No, Alaska Airlines only.
You did say that. My bad.
So I have to look and see where the Alaska airline hubs are, where it can go to. That's why I always ask people. So where do you live? What's the nearest airport, international airport? And then I see if Alaska Airlines flies there. Otherwise, it's going to go FedEx. Then I get the nearest FedEx. Has a ship center, which has a main ship center, and then I can do a hold for pickup, and it has to be able to do with dangerous and toxic goods and all that other kind of crazy stuff. But then I have that verified with my account manager, make sure I got the right place. He says, yes, let's go. He asks me the day that I'm a ship, and then he monitors my shipping, and everything works out pretty well that way. And then international is a little different. I got an agent down in Washington, but international gets kind of squirrely just because of the payment stuff and this and that. It's a big, long story after that. So unless it's a really good source that I've done a lot to Germany, that's a little easier. A lot to Holland, that's a little easier. But the Canada people, just send them hockey pucks.
Shout out to my people up in Holland.
Yeah. Joffrey from Canada had a question. He said, what size cages does Rich like to use for adults?
For adults, male or female? Females, I like to give some of them. I've got some habitat system, 30-inch, 22, 20 something. But a lot of them also in here are huge 72, 80 quart tubs with heat panels on them. Males go in a little smaller stuff. Males are in some of my racks. I had them, had to wait like X number of years to get animal plastics to get them for me. It's just a pain in the ass to get things up here. You got to pay. Right. For example, I know you guys were talking about stinky mice before this. I heard Travis bullshit about that. For example, if I buy $500 worth of mice, I pay $800 in shipping.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I do that like
so a $500 mouse order becomes a $1,300 order?
Yeah. Based on weight and size. And then, because I can't do a 3-day shipping or a 2-day ground, you can't get to Juneau by ground. You can only get to Juneau by boat or airplane. There's no roads going in, no roads going out, and there's only 97 miles of road, and that includes residential.
So do you breed your own?
What's that?
Do you breed your own?
No, my wife used to do a lot of raptor work, and she started breeding. She said, honey, these things stink like you wouldn't believe. There's no live mice in the house. 0. So she likes them all frozen and dead. And so, we got an extra freezer out in the garage, and that's mice. Mice.
How does the weather in Alaska, how does that change the ambient room the ambient temps in the room that you have to work with?
I was talking to Colton today because he was he was mentioning he's going to be watching the show, and he said, "Oh my God, we're just trying to get."
That Colton?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said he was just trying to get cool in the evenings to 70, and I go 70. Man, we can't even, we get that, we'll be playing volleyball and going surfing. I said, my highs in the summer is 55, 52, and the lows in the summer maybe 40, 44. In the winter time, my
Fahrenheit.
Excuse me.
So on Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Like right now, it's a beautiful day. It was like 52 degrees. That was a hot summer day. I was wearing shorts.
That sounds so nice. I live in Texas. I fucking hate heat.
52 degrees does not sound nice.
This sounds wonderful, bro.
I'll take 70. I'll take 65 to 70.
Oh man,
I'll take 52.
Melting. I'm like an ice cream cone on asphalt. I'm just dead. It's just too hot. So in the wintertime, it's usually pretty standard about, 23 to 33 degrees outside and probably around 44, 45 in the house. So I got to use a space heater in the snake room just to keep it a little hotter so that, the radiant panels have no problem. But the belly heat, I got to add some supplemental heat to it. And then my incubator, this is what Dave D and I were talking. I have a little wrap of insulation in the front of the glass of the habitat system so I can keep that incubator purring at 87.5 during incubations, and there's a little space heater in the in the snake room. And then, naturally, I have my mercury thermometer. I have my thermocouple and my herpstat that goes all with that. So it's all monitored all through that. But yeah, in the wintertime, sometimes we'll get around 38, 35, 30, high 30s, but, it hovers around 34, right around freezing. But then we'll have we always have a stretch in January and February. We'll get like minus 20. And that's just like fucking cold.
You ever lost power?
We have lost power, but we lose it every once in a while, and that's more so because the wind will crack a tree and knock down the power lines or whatever it is. But we're the capital city, so it's usually pretty quick. They can't let the governor get cold, right? So, but I've got instead of a generator, because the electronics here have to have a sine wave output instead of a boxed output. I use high-end universal power systems for servers, for IT servers and banks. So I can get like a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours of uninterrupted, smooth power source to my incubator. My snake room will still hold that heat. If I have to jump into a universal power system, I'll do that. But if I'm incubating eggs, man, that incubator is dialed in to that universal power supply, and that thing works great. It's like 75 pounds, huge battery system with a power supply system for servers and IT work. Highly recommend it if you can afford it. Some people like the generators, but you got to find one that will put the right power source and won't fry out your high-end electronics.
Have you always done this on your own? Like, have you ever had help?
There's no one to help me. That's like this is like I feel like an astronaut sometimes, and I'm out walking around in space. There isn't anybody. That's why it was so cool to hop on the phone, give Maxwell a call, or hop on the phone and give Rico a call. Yeah. And other than that, it's like document, take notes. And I'm a note type of person,
You said it again, Rich. Say it one more time, Rich.
Document.
Okay.
Yeah, I just take notes. Yeah, I just take notes, because you don't know what you need until you don't have it. So if you don't have
exactly, somebody don't like this. Somebody would like to point some what's the name? Well, I ain't gonna point on elbows nobody.
Listen, I'm gonna put it to you like this: if I forget and I got Alzheimer's, I got worse things to worry about than my damn snakes.
Wait till you get a clutch.
That's such an old man way to look at things.
I know. It was all that.
I'm already a middle-aged man. I don't give a shit.
There you go. It was all that academics I had, all that information. It's like, oh shit, and grants, this and that and this. It's really helpful. And
how those
he says, man, you're just a nerd, man.
How do those
we appreciate you though. We appreciate you for it though.
Hey, no, you good. You all good, Rich. How do those long those days when you had those long sun droughts, how does that affect your breeding?
When you said long days?
The sun droughts.
When you guys
go like 30, 40 days with no sun. Have you noticed that your animals circadian rhythm?
I live in what we call Seattle North. The extreme southern section, the Panhandle, is the rainforest. So in the deep winter, sunrise is around 9:30 a.m. and sunset is around 2 p.m. So we get like 5 hours, and it's quick. So we get like 5 hours of daylight. So what I try to do. So what I'll try to do when I do my breedings or just my snake thing, 6:30 or 6 o'clock, lights are on. 6 p.m., lights are off. And I try to start doing that just because, especially when I'm breeding, I want that, sort of darkness. And I also want them to have a little bit of heat, those females to have a little bit of heat if they're feeding. So I don't want them to be cold when I'm cooling, with food in them because they need that heat, I believe, to help them digest because they're cold-blooded, and their metabolisms to metabolite that food to break it down, they need to have some heat source. And if I turn it off when it's dark or with a true photo period, they won't get that. So I want to have a little bit of heat for them. So, and then the same thing happens in the summertime. That's a weird thing because the summertime sunrise is like 3 a.m. Sunset is like 11:45 p.m. And then there's that sort of like still daylight until like 1 a.m. So even though I turn off the lights, it's like shit, it's still pretty bright. And that's why, it's a kind of a bitch in the wintertime trying to change clean cages. Come back from work in the summer and it's daylight, I can just clean through and don't have to worry about it. In the wintertime, I get back from work 3:30 p.m. It's been dark. Those snakes are at the edges of their enclosures, ready to rip a new one. And it's hard to clean them. I got to spray them down, use snake sticks to get them away because it's already dark and they're ready to they want to eat, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but yeah, the photo period is sort of a challenge. I just have to just say, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 6 a.m., 6 p.m. But in the summertime, there's a lot of light. The good thing about it rains 180 inches a year here. So they usually measure it in feet instead of inches. So it's always raining. It's always like, for example, we had like 5 days of no rain, which was odd. But now, starting today, or it was yesterday actually, it's rain in the forecast for the next 12 days. It's just rain. So
breeding weather, perfect breeding weather.
Oh yeah, I just crack open the window and I have my thermostat set to turn off. It goes down into the 50s. And that's why I think that I had those snakes that would breed the perches because it's the perfect condition. People used to joke at me. They go, how do you get your snakes to breed? And I go, soft music, throw some Chardonnay in the water bottle, romantic music, and they'll go for it. But yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Put Molly and champagne.
Hey, how do you maintain your schedule? Because you say you do several things. Like, how does that work with the snakes? Like, as far as like not just the breeding, but just in general.
I know. Well, first of all, I owe it to my wife. Best ever. And she says she puts up with a lot of shit because she deals with my snakes. And she does, because when I go, think about it, man. You say, honey, I got to go on this documentary film excursion. Can you take care of 30-something chondros for 2 weeks?
Cool.
How many wives do that?
Not mine.
I got one. And so she takes care of them on that, which is great. Then if my wife and I both have to go, we've got this great house sitter that we've known for years. And he knows my snakes. He knows my dogs. He knows my wife's parrots. And he comes over here and he takes care of everything. So I'm fortunate to have a house sitter that knows the snakes and a wife that helps me deal with the snakes as well. My oldest daughter used to help me because she used to be a vet tech, but she moved up to Anchorage. And so I don't have her around anymore. But my wife and a good house sitter really, really, really help out. Otherwise, I'm screwed.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
To have that help. I think that you probably need it because you live so far away. There's nobody else you could be able to call to do anything.
Yeah, the closest person is my buddy Chris in Sitka, and what is he? The 45-minute jet flight away, or 26-hour ferry ride. But yeah, he's got some chondros over there. He's a good guy, man. Good guy.
So also, I know that like
for having that house sitter money.
he's got minion money. I got a question for you. So also because it's really difficult to get certain reptile related products at certain times of the year and just where you're at, how does that work out for you? As far as caging, equipment, thermostats, like how does all that work?
Thermostats are the easiest thing because they're only this big.
Yeah.
Cages cages and racks are a pain in the ass. I tried to get them because of, I verified to ship with Alaska Airlines, but the cages and the racks are too big unless they can be taken apart. And if you're going to get them on Alaska Airlines taken apart, you got to get them to the airport. And a lot of these distributors won't take them to the airport. So you got to hire a delivery service to go to that shop or that merchant, pick them up, bring them to the airport, and then they get on that airport. Or, like I was saying, I was fortunate with Animal Plastics, is Alley, they have them so they're taken apart, and I can just assemble them here. And the glass is a pain in the ass because they don't want to ship the glass. So sometimes they have to give me measurements, and I got to go to a glass shop to get it made. But when I got my habitat system stuff back when they were still working, I had them put them on a pallet. So they put all these cages on a pallet, and then they wrapped them with that shrink wrap. And then I had to hire a trucking service to go from the East Coast, pick them up, and drive them all the way across country to Seattle. Then I had to contract a barge service to put them on the barge, and then they had to take 5 days to go from Seattle through the Inside Passage through Canada to Alaska, and then they had to take a big moving truck that came over here. Then they had to take an effing forklift to take them off and put them in the garage, and then I had to get them up. Then it was just like get them into the house and this and that. So that just shows you. And then it was like, you're buying $4,500 worth of snake cages or $6,000, and it's going to cost you $5,000 to drive them across, and it costs you $2,000 to ship them up. It's like, ching, 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 ching.
Yeah.
It's like, so got some of those, and then the tubs, the bigger tubs, build the racks to set those up. Talk to Bob Pond, get your pro panels made, set them up, and then talk to Dion, get your spider robotics, get all those together, make sure everything's working out, and everything goes good. But it is a work in progress and bunch of effort to get this logistical nightmare to get things up here. It is tough.
Your logistical operation has come a long way from just smuggling snakes in through your pockets.
Yeah, man.
Like you're really the Chondro cowboy.
And that getting the snakes, getting those hydrodynasties up here was like a piece of cake. Because when I shipped my truck, my Ford Explorer up here from California, I stuffed the whole back end with these 2x4x2 huge snake enclosures that my buddy built. Put those and packed up shit inside. Threw that in my Explorer, packed up stuff through the ski racks, and put that on the canister. Threw that in the barge, and I just walked in with a coat with a bunch of snakes in my pocket. And met the troopers in a week.
Wow, that sounds really, really
Chondro cowboy.
Yeah, you are the Chondro cowboy for real. I do have more questions, but I've asked enough questions. I think it's time for Keno. I don't want to ask all the questions.
I want to give one to the deep, the blue line stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
When did you start? Did you ever think about? Because a lot of people, what they did back then, they crossed the yellow stuff with the blue stuff. Okay, why didn't you?
Once again, I came up with that dilute stuff, and I just, those. I think the yellow and the blue. I think they just wanted to get some crazy type of phenotypes, and that's cool. I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I love, and I thought maybe I might do some stuff like that going forward, just because some of the animals I have now, even though they're blue line, have some funky yellow in them. And so I've thought about that, but there's nothing. I kind of like looking in, spacing out, and checking out your animals in the evening, and just seeing like these amazing dark blue tree pythons. But going forward, I do have a pairing that is a very, very melanistic patterned yellow snake that was actually a blue line as the blueberry grasshopper stuff, old Mike Rico one. And then there's this female that it's an OS female crossed with a peppercorn, one of a Maxwell's or Maruki cross pepper. So and it was sort of came out of the clutch. It had a lot of yellow in it had probably that Maruki yellow side. And I'm going to cross those and see if I can't get a very melanistic type of Biaki type of animal. And so that's probably the furthest one away from my blue project one I'm going to do this upcoming years. And all the other three are going to be some action heavy genetic packed blue animals. Like, for example, one project that the guy told me to definitely do, and I'm going to do it, is I got a Maxwell Cal Jr. Daydream female, beautiful big one. So in Daydream actually was the clutch mate and sib to my dream baby. And I'm going to breed that with Sky. Ooh.
Okay.
And Sky is the legendary rock star, Mr. Blue, Carolina, blue male. So we'll see if that. I think that one's going to do some. If the old man.
What you want me doing? You want me to start talking while we're just talking and interrupt him?
I'm sorry.
What the hell?
I think that's what they want, man.
No, you're not getting that. I'm gonna shut up and let him talk.
Whatever, I'm here to have fun. Here to be informative and participate in you guys' show, man. I truly like you guys, man.
Ignore them sometimes. Ignore Tuck.
No, look, Rich. You know how sometimes you have them little badass kids you gotta ignore. Tuck was one of those kids in school. That's all. He was one of those kids. You had to throw a book at his head and act like you ain't throw it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was. He was one of those kids that was always wearing a hat in school.
I'm glad I'm actually glad that you mentioned about how like diluting the blood, because that's something that Travis and I talk about a lot. We don't talk about that as much on the show because Travis like to bring up that locale integrity shit I was talking about, but behind the scenes we talk about that a lot. How a lot of people like to use lineages maybe on one side and like to play that up and have that price high point on some things, whereas like you come in with a double dose from the male and the female, so it's not that much diluting of the blood for you, but you also not putting a bunch of things together. It's pretty cool how you trying to match them up and keep that potency going. You know what I'm saying, between your parents.
Absolutely. I'm not totally inbreeding, but I'm looking at the phenotypes of various lineages, and so
that's where I was going next. How are you with because you go right into that. What are your thoughts on the inbreeding? How far if you do inbreed, how far do you go back in that?
Right. I've always tossed this around because some people say that the inbreeding, negative, and I agree. If you seriously go into that inbreeding and you maintain inbreeding after inbreeding, I think you probably will run into some issues. However, think about this, all right?
With the mosaic snakes.
We already looked at these tree snakes in terms of biogeography. And if you look at it in terms of the Cape York Peninsula animals, if you look at the Marukis, and if you look at how these plate tectonics and these islands broke apart in evolution, there's some similarities there. Maybe those islands were actually one continent before they broke apart. But what I'm leading to is like snakes really can't swim that well. They can swim, but I don't think they can swim like from 200, 300 miles. They're going to get picked off. They're going to drown. Secondly, these are arboreal snakes, so they're in the trees. I do not believe, and I could be wrong, I think it would be interesting to study by marking them, how far they migrate. How far do they roam? What is their home? Is it 1 tree, 2 tree, 3 trees, 4 trees?
We've asked that we've kind of played with Pat about that, Patrick too,
Right.
because
So do
with
they?
the locality stuff.
Right. So do these snakes actually
Yeah.
diversify? Say, I'm going to go to 4 miles away to find a female. Maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. Or do they go maybe 2 trees? And do they find the next female the next time? So they're actually staying within this tree. And how
Maybe
far?
I'm gonna attempt tree on the left. Holler at me.
Yeah. So there's some degree of inbreeding. And if you look at some of the Al Zulik stuff back in the days, if you look at his how he got to his blue lines, there's some sib to sib crossing if you follow that that lineage in there. So I don't do what I'll call a Tennessee breeding or a Kentucky breeding.
Alabama breeding, West Virginia breeding.
The brother, the sister to the brother type of thing. But I might do a sib to a sib 2 generations off or something like that, and just do it one time, just see where those babies go, and then take those babies and go way to a totally unrelated lineage. But still, those lineages better have the physical appearance of what I'm trying to get to, because it's not like.
So you need that phenotype between your animals. That's what you want. You don't want the. It's more phenotype guy than
Start once I get, if I breed 2 phenotypes that I like, and then I look at their babies, I will think that those babies contain some of that genetic material, because I look at animals as basically a vessel that's carrying this genetics, because I will. A good example is, I think, God, what was his name? God damn it! But I can't remember his name. But he was a great guy back in the old days. I think he had a small collection. 2 green snakes, but they always pumped out the most high yellow adults. Brandon Osborne. I think that's him. Have you guys?
Brandon Osborne. I've heard of him. Yeah.
He had these 2 snakes that just time and time again pumped out the most amazing high yellows. And he looked at the parents, and you would think they were $350 snakes. But the babies that they produced, and then when they became adults, were $10K. Back then.
That sounds like Rob World, because Rob World always thought that was like, man, I can sell these as long as I got the ingredients.
Yeah.
He says something that actually hurt him was when Brandon Osborne, a lot of the old guys, they have green snakes, and then they would get the yellows and all that from this. So Rob's point was, he felt like he kind of got fucked when people would start asking for, hey, let me see pictures of the adults, and he was like, shit, man, because what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show them these green ass snakes.
Shout out to Rob.
The squirrel, man.
The squirrel.
The squirrel. Squirrel world.
I can see it.
But then I was always telling him, like, hey man, look, just show what you've been producing. Rob would be like, shit, man, I don't have time for all that shit, and all that. That's like, Rob.
He was ahead. I don't know what he's doing recently. I've seen him on your show, but for a while the guy was dealing with piles of chondros. That's all he did. He got to go up there.
He was pumping the hell out of them yellow chondros out. You're right.
And for me, 30 neos is a lot. I don't know what you guys think, but if I had 2 clutches,
I would agree. Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I'd probably get, I go through them. I said, okay, I'm gonna do this batch, and when I first start, if I do that roll of the rack, I go, okay, I try to do every other one so I don't spook the one that's just eaten. I do 5. Okay, if I can do these 5, and then the next day I do 5, and the next day I do 5. Shit, I've only done 15. I've got to do that. That's another 5-6 days, and then I got to start the whole shit over again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's exhausting, and it takes a lot of time. I can always recall, trying to feed these babies and telling my 2 daughters that were young at the time, you guys can't move, can't say a word, you got to be quiet. And they're going,
Hey, for real.
and the dog would bark, and or the macaw would start screaming, and then babies freak out, and then I go, okay, that's it.
So you got a macaw?
My wife's got a rescue macaw. She's got a rescue macaw, and then we got an African gray. And that African gray talks like you would not believe. Oh, it's the smartest. It's like the guy's a talker, and he understands. He says stuff. He knows the dog's name, teases the dogs. This African gray is so damn smart. It's like, whoa. When guests come over, sometimes my wife's got to cover it so it doesn't swear.
Wait,
so
it cuts out y'all neighbors when they come over?
Oh, one of the best ones was one summer day. It was kind of warm. Sorry for sidetracking, but this is a good story. So I'm out watering the grass. It's kind of hot out, and this woman rides her bicycle, and she's in spandex, and my bird just whistles, woo, woo, and he's yelling at me. And I said, it wasn't me, it was the parrot. She goes,
yeah. How'd you teach your bird how to switch into freak mode, though?
It was the best.
I got a feeling you taught him how to do that, Rich. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I feel like that's taught.
No, maybe, but that bird knows how to tell my dogs, do you want some grub? And then picks up a Cheeto and puts it down in the cage. The dog comes up and pulls it back. Goes, nah,
Why does your bird sound like Al Bundy, though?
He picks up anything.
I want these birds now.
Yeah, he basically tells my wife, gets up in the morning and says, want your head scratched? He goes, oh, you're so cute, honey. You're so cute. It's like,
what's going on with this bird?
I want an African gray now, dog.
Fox, and he picks up these words, I guess because the birds down.
The cages are expensive though for those birds.
I swear at the neonates upstairs, and the bird's picking up my swear words.
Yeah, the bird is learning.
Exactly.
So hold on. So they hear you cussing out the snakes.
Yeah, he helps me out. I sometimes just say, "You tell him, Orongo. You tell him."
See, I send the African gray in there when it's time to kick the company out. I'm like, hey, look, hey, fly around.
Yeah, but I heard on one of your other shows you were talking about incubators and condensation, or egg boxes and condensation.
Yeah.
So
how do you set up your egg boxes, and how does that go? How do you incubate artificially over egg? Or what do you do over water?
I go artificial. Excuse me, I'm going to go turn on this light. It's starting to get dark in Alaska. Can you believe that? There we go. So my first clutches, I went naturally artificial, but I was with vermiculite just because I heard it was more forgiving. Then I immediately jumped over. Everyone started going to the container shop and buying these acrylic boxes. And then I started off actually doing the 151 method. You guys, anybody ever talk about that anymore? Or is that sort of like vestigial out in the old age? When we used to do eggshell surface temperatures?
No.
I think it was Danny Bruno that had a little thermostat was monitoring the egg temperatures of a maternally incubating female and how they rub their scales on the eggs to raise and drop off the temperatures. Yeah. So we started going the first week. I think we were at the 30.5. Then the second through the 6th week, we did at 31.5. And the last week, we dropped it down to 30 and then dropped it down a little bit in the last days. But we were just monitoring the eggshell surface temperature. So we had a thermocouple probe on the eggs. And so we were monitoring that. We had, then I went a step further. I got nerdy. I had a thermocouple probe that monitored the air ambient temperature within my egg box. and then I had a probe that was on the egg shells, so you can actually see and monitor the metabolism and the releasing of heat of these developing embryos within the eggs. And those eggs, as they were metabolized, will really start to skyrocket temperature, and you'd have to drop your thermostat down, even though your eggs are warming it up. So you had to follow that relationship. And that was our like intro nerdy post Moss incubating type of crap. And I remember Rico and had another buddy over in Washington who used to do a lot of stuff in Indonesia. And he says, "Oh man, in Indonesia and Thailand, where these people monitor chondro eggs, they take a refrigerator, they gut it, and they just throw eggs on the racks. And the temperature in those areas in Indonesia and Thailand, that's the temperature they incubate their eggs. And they go in the hollows of the trees. That's what those eggs are going to go in. They just threw these eggs on this rack in the refrigerator, gutted, and let them hatch that way." He goes, "It's sort of like an Easter egg basket." So Rico used to say, "Oh, just throw them at 87 degrees, 87.5, and let them roast for 49 days. I said, "Oh, that's a lot easier than monitoring this eggshell shit." So
Yeah.
We started using those container companies, little acrylic boxes, little PVC cutouts, put that egg crate, a little acrylic thing in there, and throw your eggs in there. And then from there, we got too complicated with that shit. Excuse me. We just throw the eggs on the egg crate and suspend them over the water. And then we got to the squamata boxes, and which I use now. Those actually work really well. But he's got some funky plastic thing in there now. Back in the old days when they had the acrylic ones, those were great. Now he's got this rubbery plastic, and it's shit. So I've been searching around through the country and through Canada to find the plastic ones. I've got a bunch of them, about 10 boxes. And so the theory is, or the conceptual theory, I believe, is you want to suspend these eggs over water in an egg box, which is a smaller environment, which is easier to control than a whole incubator. For example, I got a huge 5-foot by 4-foot by 3-foot habitat system incubator, which is a big box to control the environment. And that's why we have these water bottles as heat sinks. And then we have these open Rubbermaids to provide additional humidity, so that, think about these things as everything works in a gradient. Everything works in a gradient, and everything goes downhill. So if you take a ball, it's going to roll downhill. It takes energy to take anything to go against the gradient. So what I'm getting at is, if you have an incubator and you have these eggs, and it starts getting dry in the incubator and the eggs are moist, what's going to happen? It's going to go downhill. So the moisture for those eggs is going to come out of the eggs and go into the incubator because it's being drawn out of there because of gradients. So we put those tubs in there to create moisture, so to reduce that gradient. And then these egg boxes, we want to suspend them on eggs and create an environment that's easier to control because it's smaller. Everything's easier to control when it's small. And we want to have them incubating or suspended on the surface, but we want to have that environment in that egg box that is 100% saturated, relative humidity, 100% saturated. So what does that mean? That means that air is 100% saturated with what? Moisture. That's why it's enclosed. Okay, so if you think about rain, or I look at here in the Coast Range, moisture comes off the ocean. It's saturated with air. As it gets to the mountains, the only way that those clouds can get over those mountains is to what? Release moisture. So, and as they release, they get cooler. Cold air holds less moisture than warm air. Okay, so we're incubating at 87.5. Okay, so now think about going in your car in January. I know in Alaska, it's cold. So when I go in that car and I exhale my moisture onto that glass windshield, what do I see? Condensation. Boom. It goes from my moist air, which is hot, contains more moisture because it's in my body. It hits that glass surface, which is cold. The only thing that moisture now gets cold, what does it have to do? It has to release moisture. That's the condensation you see. So when I was talking in those old MVF threads, is different. Every element has a different what's called heat capacity. For example, take a frying pan. You got a cast iron pan, you turn it to hot. It's going to take a little while for that cast iron pan to get hot But once it gets hot, you can take it off. It's going to stay hot. It has a high heat capacity. You take an aluminum pan, you put it on there, it gets hot quickly. And then you take it off, it cools down quickly because its heat capacity constant is different. So whatever type of material our egg boxes are constructed of, they're going to either hold heat quicker and longer than another type of substance, a rubber or a plastic or an acrylic. So depending on what type of material we have in an egg box, that's going to affect condensation rates because that moisture, that warm air hits that type of material, how cold, how quickly, and how that's going to affect how that warm air releases the moisture. And that's what I was trying to say. So if we can ultimately find a more stable type of material to utilize as egg boxes, I think we can reduce or combat the effect of condensation. That was just my thought using theory of thermodynamics. Interesting, huh?
I've never heard it explained like that, but I've also never.
Bro, I'm over here with my.
A lot of this stuff,
like
the stuff you said about Rico and like how you figured that out. Like I've never heard anybody exactly say that.
Like chemistry,
like not a person.
Algebra. I was a mathematician, and so all that is in my background. And so that's
all of it's science too. It's crazy how you blended all that up and put that with the snakes.
That's why chondros. I just totally dig it because it's like my laboratory here, you know. And that's why I take notes. I can review.
And then you're in the middle of nowhere. You ain't got nothing to do but perfect that.
Fishing. I play with my dog. Have my family. And I deal with snakes. People go, "You deal with snakes in Alaska?" I go, "Yeah, I got a lot of them."
How many snakes is your collection total?
Last I counted was 30.
30, okay.
That
sounds about right.
Yeah, 30's a good. I can handle that.
That's a good number.
Until I start buying those damn mice and pay $800 for shipping, man.
Man, look, dog. 800. Man, he paid $1,300 for a rat order. Man, look.
I know. I do that 4 times a year.
Oh, God.
And then, you know, like Keenan was saying, you know, or excuse me, Travis was saying, sometimes you get a bunch of pinkies, and after time, like I said, if I thaw out X number and they don't get eaten, they're trash. So I go through hundreds and hundreds of pinkies, you know, establishing my neos, you know, pull out a dozen pinkies. Oh, shit. I fed, you know, they don't eat it. I got to throw it away. I don't just go try that pinky, keep on going to neo. Like that pinkies for that neo. If it doesn't eat it, shit can. I wish I had a king snake. I could have fed all these mice too, you know, because those king snakes are garbage disposals.
Well, monitor, get you a monitor.
This is what CJ has to say to you.
Yeah.
He said, "Tell Rich my mama called. Tell Rich only my mama called me Colton."
Okay, right on, CJ.
Keep calling him Colton.
Your name is Colton Fraser.
Yeah.
Colton Fraser. All right.
Yeah. Don't feel bad. My mama called me Pooh Bear.
There you go. My mom sometimes doesn't know if she's talking to my older brother or me. She goes, "Who is this?"
She called you Pooh Bear, bro?
I've always been Pooh Bear since I was a baby.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't know if I got
on that blade.
Get out of here. I do want to say this. I would love to have you and Tim on an episode together.
I would love that.
I would love to do that. You got any more questions, Keno?
Honestly, I got about 10 more, but I think we should do save for another episode because we got to go here all night.
I think so too.
You guys rock. I truly enjoy it. You guys put together something that has been long in the waiting. You guys, like I said, this is sort of the stuff that we used to do, but you know, old school at MVF, get together and have situations like that. We used to meet every morning. It was almost like grab your coffee, grab a croissant or something, show up with your keyboards, and people would start threading out, and it was good. You know, like I said, my daughter danced at Joffrey Ballet, and so I went to Chicago. Met with old Chicago guys, met with Carrie. They showed me around. We had some deep dish pizzas. Went to a couple Thai restaurants. It was great.
Yeah, I know the Harold's though. You know what I'm saying? Get you them Harold's gizzards. Get you some of that hell's chicken, baby.
Also, I gotta say this to you, Rich. Listen, I do, because I still go through the MVF all the time. I do appreciate a lot of the posts that you put up and a lot of things that you answered for people.
Thank you.
You actually left, a lot of information for people to go back and see. So, nobody says anything to you about it. Like we have noticed it.
Appreciate
Especially
it.
with your emblem with the pill on it. It's everywhere.
I'm glad
you know it.
Well, that's because you say that. Just because sometimes the shit just gets too heavy. And you just gotta just say, "I need that pill."
I'm telling you, the Chondro Cowboy, man. I don't know what else you was doing. You was certainly smoking in them snakes. Yeah.
He said he smuggled a cobra in his pocket.
That's what happens.
Hell
no. But I think that's all I got. I don't know about Keno, but we greatly appreciate it. I'm gonna try to get you back ASAP. And I'm gonna try to get your friend on board too.
Appreciate that, man. You guys have a great one to the whole Chondro Bar community. Everyone rocks, and like I said, we're all just in here to have a good time, enjoy, share it, and also these fascinating tree serpents that we so much love and respect. And like I said, they're all beautiful snakes. I have wanted some. Other people, you guys have some. You guys put together.
Yeah.
I know Keno's doing his Cyclops stuff, and these are all amazing contributions.
I got some designer stuff too coming. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? I got some on to come up.
Just share the knowledge, because I say this from the bottom of my heart that I didn't just come out knowing all the knowledge. There was a lot of people before me that that were so open and just shared a lot of knowledge with me and helped me. And I just like to give back to these keepers and all these newcomers. I consider myself a newcomer because every day there's something new, and that's what makes this stuff so exciting, man.
Yeah.
I say there's a life lesson, man. I say, look, the day you wake up and don't learn nothing new, the day you start becoming stupid.
I agree, man. I used to tell my students, "What do you think? You're born a genius? You get dumber with age? Come on, man."
For real.
I don't know. I think that is possible. Some people are getting dumber with age. There's a bunch of old people. There's a bunch of old people that are probably like real smart, and they discover social media, and now they are getting dumber. They are.
Baby, how you work this thing?
Oh, I can put a picture up.
But no, Rich, you know how I feel
about
it. I got your number, so
yeah. Thanks, man. And if you want to, you can share with Travis, because I'd love to stay in touch with you guys. And I'd be open to get on board again. And if you can get that good buddy, Mr. Morris, little skateboarder over here with the tails and scales, I would just rock and roll.
I'm gonna harass him tomorrow. I'll talk to him. I talked to Tim probably like 15 minutes before the show started. Excellent. About some other stuff. But I'm just gonna go harass him tomorrow, so you're gonna get a text from me.
Perfect.
But it's been a pleasure.
I think that this is probably one of the best shows that we've had. Honestly,
it makes me feel great. Like I said, you guys do a great job, man. It's like perfect.
We appreciate it. We appreciate getting the information out, and that's why we have people like you come through.
And I appreciate hearing that from a legend in yourself too, man. Somebody with so many damn skins on the wall.
Yeah.
Seriously.
A lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it. And everyone have a good evening and enjoy your collections, Yang.
That's it for the CBR.
That's Rich, y'all, all the way up in Juneau up there.
Yep. Thank you, gang.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Icehouse himself. Y'all take care.
Sir. Till next time, y'all. Next week. Peace.
Exactly.
Thanks again, Rich.
You bet. Peace out, man. Love you guys.